What's your take on the age-old discussion of long versus short copy? And our long sales page is really the highest converting.
Okay, and I'm conscious of the time, so I'm going to try to answer these quickly too. Long versus short, long works for certain things and short works for certain things. And it depends where people are coming from. Generally, if you're thinking of using long copy, I've seen better results if you use long form sales copy, and that's not just like a really long page, but like intentionally written long form sales copy where there's a narrative, where it looks like it's on a single page, like there's a sort of white page frame. You guys have that template at Unbounce too for the long form sales page. If you're using that template, if that's what you want to do, I would recommend not using it as necessarily a landing page for people who are new to your brand, but rather as a landing page from an email drip campaign. So once you get people in and you get to talk to them a bit and develop a rapport with them through your emails, then your calls to action when you're trying to sell them could go, and probably should go, to a long form sales page, because long form sales copy doesn't necessarily work that great for people who are not very aware of how you fit into their needs and how trustworthy you are yet. So that's where, if you were to use long copy with people who don't know you, you probably wouldn't see the conversion rate be quite as good as if you were to use it with people who do know you.
Now, Joanna, I'm getting a handful of, well, actually quite a few questions. I'm just going to open up this questions window a bit for me, which means it takes me out of presentation mode. So sorry everyone who's attending. I just want to see some of the things you're saying. But for example, Cynthia commented on long copy, and she said, "I for one don't read long copy," and I think you addressed that really well. I mean, if it is kind of your first touch, yeah, I mean, people probably won't spend the time. But let's say that post-conversion, you have, a 7 or 8 part email drip campaign, sort of warming those leads up. Then when you go to make kind of your hard sale, you could do it with, let's say, a long sales page.
Form.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think it's important to keep in mind that even if you yourself don't like long copy, that's not the point. You're not selling to yourself, and you're not selling to people who are going to write to you and say, "Oh, I don't like your ugly long sales page. Why are you being spammy with me?" Those people aren't your target with a long-form sales page. Go into it knowing that. And if you know that the majority of people who want to buy from you, or who are most likely to buy from you, will respond really negatively to long copy, if you know that, you're not just guessing because you personally don't like it, but if you know that, don't use it. If you don't know that, test it and see, because hands down, long-form sales copy does outperform short copy when people are more aware of your brand.
And I think you made a really good point. Test it. Just see what your visitors want to see.
Right.
Now,
How much
one question. Sorry, Joanna. I'm just going to quickly interject with a question that's come up a few times. A couple people have mentioned convincing old school kind of business managers and business folks to have personality in copy. So Cynthia, for example, asked, how do you deal with old school clients transitioning to digital advertising?
Oh, that's so hard. It's hard because I have like this feeling like, well, they just have to get on board, which I'm sure everybody feels out there, which isn't very productive, like just saying that.
No.
But yeah, it is a matter of, if you can't convince them with what matters to you, and that's like a key persuasion principle, right? That's like back to Dale Carnegie. It doesn't matter what. Don't try to convince them by talking about, oh, but I know that this does that, and you have to get on board with this. You just have to change. But rather, what language do they speak? If they're old school business guys, they still speak the language of money and of data and results. So if you say that they have to get on board with this, show them in real data, maybe it's split tests that you've seen done in other places, or you've projected in some way what they could make differently for their business if they were to get on board with, this digital strategy. That tends to be the way. Is that kind of speaking to the question? I feel like it's a larger strategy question.
No, I would agree completely. I think when it comes to selling anyone on anything, selling your boss on transitioning to, let's say, a different tone of voice in your copy is not much different than, selling a customer a product. You're going to have to make your case, and you're going to have to back it up. And
And you're going to have to speak in their language, not yours.
Yeah.
Like you again have to get out of the equation and like focus entirely on them. And that's why there's some of the best salesmen out there. You wonder how they can go home at night after like kissing their client's butt, but they do it because, and it's not butt kissing, right, but it just comes off as feeling that way because they're so willing to bend to the needs of the other person and agree with them. And but at the end of the day, they go home richer because they spoke in a language where their ego was out of it. It didn't matter to them what was going on, but rather what mattered was getting the thing that they wanted out of it, and that is either the sale or convincing your boss or whatever it might be, right?
So, and I would say, Cynthia, you know what? One thing I would recommend is if you can run an A/B test, or if you're sending an email, split test the content of that email. Do your traditional copy versus, let's say, something that you want to try out, and then just see how your user base responds to it. And either your boss will be right or
Yeah.
you will be right. All he or she should really care about is how much the conversions or the money you make at the end of it.
Totally agreed.